Welcome to the Leadership, Impact, and Talent Podcast, where we spotlight leaders driving innovation across energy, technology, and infrastructure.
I started my first business at age 8, and I was fixing bikes in the neighborhood for my friends. And
so I'd like to think of myself as the visionary. I'm an ideas guy. I'm always thinking, always tinkering and adjusting.
Leadership has to do with inspiring people, and it has to do with creating an environment where they can be successful.
Probably the most important tool to me. Learned about how to treat people and how to treat myself, and learned some humility.
Stay nimble, get a team around you so that you can focus in on what your core competencies are, which for you, you're a builder. So you need to go and build.
You know, if you do the right thing and keep your clients at the center of what you're doing and measure that value, right? Make sure that you're delivering that. You know, a lot of other things will fall into place.
What's that one piece of advice that you'd give?
Work hard and don't take no for an answer. Don't let people tell you you will never make it. This has been said so many times. Find something you are passionate about.
What's up, everybody? Today I'm joined by Adam Rose. He's the Vice President of Business Development at ChemTech Energy Services. Adam brings a unique journey to the energy industry, one built on hard work, authenticity, and a deep commitment to building relationships. Now, ChemTech itself is a remarkable story. Founded in 1999, the company started in the additive market and has grown into a trusted player across oil and natural gas applications. Today, ChemTech is working more closely with natural gas while also looking at emergency frontiers. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show, but AI and then fueling the massive energy needs for modern data centers. In this conversation, we're going to explore Adam's journey, and we're going to jump into that here in a minute. Adam, thank you so much for joining the show. I'm really excited to dig in.
Greg, thank you for having me here, man. I really appreciate it. I'm a first-time podcaster, so excited to see how this thing turns out.
All right, well, we'll take it easy on you. We'll
Sounds
save
good.
the tough questions for the end. No, I'm just kidding. Well, how I like to start this, Adam, is just to get to know you a little bit better, let our audience understand you, your role. Can you tell us a little bit about your position as the Vice President of Business Development at ChemTech? Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so honestly, while I do have the Vice President of Business Development title, we are a smaller, privately held company. So really, I wear multiple hats. I do the VP of Business Development, but I also do the sales side of things. Do a little bit of marketing here and there as well, and then help our inside team where needed. But really, my main focus is to identify key opportunities, new and existing markets, and then develop a strategy for my team and I so that we can be successful.
Awesome. And I know something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we first met is you drive forward with this whole people-centric approach. And we're going to get into this a little bit later on in the episode as you kind of talk about your journey. But when we talk about relationship-driven leadership, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it means just that, relationship-driven, right? So, everything revolves around that keyword relationship. The only way to really build trust or to truly lead is to have people trust you. Right. So whether it's your colleagues, your customers, your vendors, you develop that relationship with these folks. And ultimately, they're going to learn to trust you. And then the rest is just going to come naturally and fall into place.
Awesome. And I know something that a lot of leaders struggle with, right? Especially in the energy industry. It's a pretty intense industry, right? When it's good and business is good, you're jamming.
Yep.
And you probably have a lot of stress, a lot of business coming in. How do you balance, right, the technical demands or the demands that rise just from like the influx of work with building trust and partnerships?
That's a good question. I think it's something you just kind of learn, as you mature in your career. But I mean, the biggest thing is just being yourself, right? Be yourself, be real, be genuine, take the time to get to know the people that you're working with. Once again, whether it's customers, whether it's vendors, whether it's even your own colleagues. What I like to do is I like to get to know all of these people. I invite them into my personal life, show them that you care because you actually do care, right? So treat them like people.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into that then. So if we go back to the beginning, your foundation has really been on work ethic. It's something that you pride yourself in, something that was drilled into you at a young age. and then kind of has grown and prospered into this whole leadership, people first centric approach to the way that you do business. Can you tell us a little bit about your story? What did what are the early years of Adam Rose look like?
Yeah, I mean, let's kick it way back, circa, back in the 90s. So I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. I was raised in Amish country, while I myself am not Amish. I do want to clarify that. I was raised in the Amish, part of Pennsylvania, and you're surrounded by just working class people. It is a low income area, but very heavily working class. We're all taught that strong work ethic. And I myself had the luxury, I had my parents divorced whenever I was younger, and I had the luxury of having two great, men in my life, my father, my stepfather. But because my parents were divorced, I grew up with my stepfather, who just so happens to be, an excommunicated Amishman. So he was raised in the Amish community, raised with that work ethic. And, he really set the cornerstone for that work ethic in me from a very young age. I recall him coming in my life around the age of 6, and he was, anything about the Amish, they're pretty tough. They're hard workers. And, he kind of modeled that and bestowed the work ethic in me, from a really, really young age. It was, when you're young, you don't really understand, you don't really, what's going on. But over time, I've learned to really respect him for it. And I'm really appreciative of having that. But yeah, I mean, right from the get-go, I started working, I remember, with my best friend when I was 8 years old. We started a landscaping business for $1 an hour. Yes, $1 an hour. Yeah. And, then we worked through with all the neighbors in the area, and started working on a farm when I was 14, and down the street from my parents' house, worked with my stepdad the entire time, and then doing construction with him. And I really did that the whole way, from whenever I was just a kid until, I went to college, and even in my early college years before I got my internship, I was doing that. So I was working construction, working on farm, just, always raised to kind of work and have that work ethic in me. So
and that's super interesting, right? So work ethic, staying busy, you had jobs, right? You were an entrepreneur at a very young age. Even when you think about work ethic, right? What does that mean to you? Like, is it just about staying busy? Is it about the quality of the work that you're producing? Maybe you could help unpack that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a lot of different things. So, right, it is obviously the quality of the work. You want to make sure that you always give a good product out, regardless of whether you're, trimming bushes or mowing lawns at 8 years old, versus doing what we do now, where we're building full blown, measurement skids and providing a high quality product. All of that, obviously comes into play. But, once again, you're not going to be able to lead and truly do things unless you build that trust with whoever it is that you're working with, and whatever it is that you're doing. Right. Like I said, being real, being genuine, being a good person, and always doing the right thing.
Well, I think that's something that makes relationships last, right? Not only that you're willing to work hard, but the quality of the work that you're putting in. I mean, we kind of see this, you'll hear about this on the media, that the new generation maybe doesn't have the same work ethic that maybe our parents did or that we were raised with, right? And I think what you were kind of tapping at is one of the ways that you get people to come back is by having that work ethic. And if the quality of your work is incredibly high, right? They'll keep coming back for more.
Yeah. Well, and, teaching it to whether you have kids or if you get to mentor, younger people, teaching that and helping. And even people our own age, being a mentor for them and helping them. I can't tell you how many people along the way that have mentored me, in my career. And those people have been wonderful and took me under their wing. And, I've tried to do the same for, those, younger than me, or even some of the guys my own age. Try to do the same thing and get back where you can.
And so after that stint, you were an entrepreneur, went to college, right? You started interning at an oil and gas measurement company, and they ended up offering you a job. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah. So I would think I was 20 whenever I started working for FMC Technologies, Smith Meter in Erie, Pennsylvania. I was in my sophomore year of college. And yeah, I started as an engineering intern back, I think, in 2007.
Okay. And then what? Because I think after that, you made a bit of a pivot, right?
Yeah,
you went out on your own.
There's a lot to unpack here from then until now. So let's dive into it. I was an engineering intern all through college. Upon graduation, they offered me a role to start full time, which I did, and I did that for approximately 2 years. And obviously now I'm not really in an engineering role. I'm more of in a business development and sales role. And we'll get into how that came to be in a minute. But as I'm going through this engineering thing, I'm learning about all the different products that we have, and I'm learning how they work, and meeting a lot of people. As a design engineer first, and then I get into become a manufacturing engineer, which means I have to go actually out on the floor, away from my desk, meet with people, and start working through problem solving and building solutions for vendors, for people out on our shop floor, and really helping people. And man, that was really how I learned, hey, I need to be doing something different in my career. Well, I'm grateful for the engineering years.
Is
I'm
that how you got into sales?
Yes.
Was that basically the pivot? That was the spark.
That was the pivot. Yep. I was also at a point in my personal life where I was ready to just make a change. And I've been in, Erie, Pennsylvania, in that area my entire life. I think I was 25, and I made the move to jump into sales head on, and went to Houston, Texas. Yeah.
So then from Houston, Texas, somehow you ended up in North Dakota, and then back down to Colorado.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that story.
Sure.
And what led you to get there.
Yeah. So, I'm in Houston doing my thing, loving life. Houston's great. Have a lot of good friends down here. I can assure you that before I went to North Dakota, I had zero intention of ever moving to North Dakota. What I will say now, after living there for a couple of years, some of the best people on the planet, I actually really enjoyed it. But the reason I wound up there was, we were opening up a new facility, and, the same sales guy that wanted me to move to Houston said, hey, we need you or one other guy to, you were the young guys. One of y'all needs to move to North Dakota and open up the shop and get it blown and going for us. And the other guy was a close friend of mine, still to this day, Patrick Lasky, and he was about to get married. So I took the hit for the team. Ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made, honestly. And it was a game changer for me.
Yeah. And so a lot of times when people make moves out of their comfort zone, I feel like that theme is consistent, right? Hey, I jumped ship and I moved somewhere, or I took a new job in an area or an industry that I didn't know a lot about, but that was really what made something happen for me. So that, I know we had talked about this a little bit, but maybe you can unpack that a bit. When you went up to North Dakota, why did that move end up panning out for you?
Sure. First, it showed the commitment I had to, the company that I was working for, right? They then said, hey, this is a guy that is committed. He's going to go up and do what's necessary, to get the job done. And, it's scary, right? It's scary anytime you make that move. You don't really know anybody. But I found that there are great people all around this country, wherever you go, a lot of good people, and made it a little less scary, getting up there, meeting people. And, now I haven't been back there in a couple of years. I actually always look forward to going back whenever I do.
And now you're meeting with people pretty much every day, right? Like that's your job.
Yes.
So
yes.
In a component of that, we touched on this at the beginning, right? Is just this whole people-centric approach. You'd mentioned that going from North Dakota down to Colorado, I think you were working at Flow Management Devices in Colorado at the time. You had a manager that really opened up your eyes to the way to interact or like blend work-life balance.
Yeah.
What did that look like, and how did that impact you?
Well, I first want to say I've had a lot of great managers, and I can't do this without, throwing some respect at another manager that I had before I get into this one. His name was Dale Suter. He really taught me the importance of being part of a team, and that drives right into relationship building, right? So he taught me the importance of that. But the gentleman that you're speaking to, his name was Steve Stewart. And I remember going into the interview with him, and we sat down, and all he wanted to do was talk about skiing. That's all he wanted to talk about was skiing. He's like, where do you like to ski? Do you ski? This and that. And he's like, I already know who you are. He's like, I already did my research. I've talked around, to enough people about, who you are. He's like, the job's yours. Basically, if you want it, I just wanted to see what kind of person you were. And from that point on, I was like, wow, like here is a guy that just wants to surround himself with good people and make the people that he's working with, make the people that he is selling to, all his customers, his friends, right? And be there and build that trust with each one of them. And I think that to me was kind of like an eye opener. Like this guy's doing it right. This guy is really doing it right.
And so he just wanted to create an atmosphere where he was working with people that he liked and
Basically,
people who he
yeah.
could trust, right?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that's what the interview was all about. So how did you take that and then apply it to your own approach, right? To being a leader, to being a VP of business development when you're out creating relationships with other people. What does that look like for you?
Sure. I mean, I kind of follow the same suit. So everybody I meet, we invite them into our personal lives. We get to know them. We get to know who they are. We get to know their significant others, if they have them, their kids. It's important to us because we actually care about these people. We get to know, how we can help them, from a business standpoint and even sometimes in a, personal standpoint. So, building that true relationship with those people makes it much easier, to have that long-standing partnership and that long-standing relationship.
Sure. Do you feel like it allows you to serve them a little bit better? Like
Absolutely.
Help meet their needs?
Yes, serves their needs. I think it also allows you to create real, honest conversations. It's not always, we all love to win. We all love to get the orders. We all love to, get those big jobs and whatnot that come in. But the reality is the day-to-day, there's a lot of little things that take place too. And some of those are really uncomfortable conversations. And I can assure you having an uncomfortable conversation with somebody that actually likes you and you like them makes it a little bit easier to navigate those waters and manage that situation.
Yeah, I found that those uncomfortable conversations tend to grow trust, right? If you're able to go to the depths of a conversation, something that maybe is a blind spot that somebody had, right? An opportunity that they're not seeing in front of them, your bonds almost become stronger, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at with kind of developing that rapport or that relationship with the people you're working with?
Exactly, man. You nailed it right on the head. So
nice. All right. Well, let's transition a little bit for the listeners who may not know. Can you give us a quick overview of ChemTech Energy and the services you provide? Sure,
absolutely. So ChemTech Energy is a company, a custom fabrication shop that has been in business since 1999. It's a really unique story. I think it's one that just really shows, how you have to adapt if you want to grow, right? So the company originally started in the additive injection space, which was just building a small metered block to put additives into your different types of gasoline or any type of red dye into your diesels, things like that, refined products. The original owner, Gary Williams, his son, Jeb, actually still works for the company. But Gary started it, and over time, he started to grow from doing additive, just the additive blocks to additive systems to full blown loading racks for refined product systems to crude systems, large pipeline metering systems, and now we are literally involved with just about every type of product and application that you can think of, whether it's crude oil, natural gas, NGLs. Gasoline, refined product, produced water, and LNG, you name it, we pretty much do all of it. And, the company, this is another kind of cool story, is they sold in 2014 to a large parent company. That parent company was great. They rode the waves over, or through the ups and downs and through COVID. And then in 2023, that's whenever they approached the original owners to buy the company back. And while Gary didn't come back into the mix, Milton Page and Jeb Williams, Gary's son, decided to buy the company back. And my role in this and how I kind of came to be here, just I think it's worth noting, I have been working with ChemTech for the last, 12 years approximately, maybe longer. They were one of my customers that I was supplying instrumentation to. And whenever they bought the company back, they needed someone to come in and really focus on the oil and gas measurement side. So it was a perfect fit, perfect time in my life, and it worked out extremely well. So,
and you've pretty much watched the company go through a couple of different iterations then. Did you notice any impact to culture or the way that the company functioned, kind of going through the being bought out and then being bought back? What did that look like, and how did that feel for you, right, and your employees?
Sure. Well, I wasn't working here at the time. I do want to point that out, but just in talking with my colleagues and then also understanding, the working relationship that I had with them over the years. I mean, when you go from a privately held company, you are able to, pivot and make decisions quickly and do things a little bit differently. No shade at larger corporations. Larger corporations do tend to, have different standards and procedures and price points that you need to hit, which sometimes make it a little more challenging. But as they've shifted back to that private side, it has definitely impacted our business in a very positive way. And we've been able to grow the business significantly over the last couple of years.
It's awesome. And it sounds like it's opened up some channels to go into things like you'd mentioned AI, data centers. Tell me a little bit about that. Like where is ChemTech going, in 2026 and beyond?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, being part of this, this company, we, as we are private, it does allow us, like I said, to pivot. We have a little more ability to, move quicker and do things a little bit quicker. So we, as we're sitting here and we're watching the shift with the presidential change, and we're hearing all this talk about AI and the amount of money being spent between your Metas and your Googles and, all these big hyperscalers, we're like, okay, what does that equate in our industry, right? Where does that equate? In a few years past, we had done this kind of same thing. We had pivoted into the hydrogen space, and we, built a whole hydrogen team, which we are, one of the main players in that space, but it had kind of slowed down because of the shift in the presidential change, right? So, the regime change. So now we see, okay, here's the current thing that is, essentially kind of like a gold rush. And we're like, where can we actually fit? So myself and a few other of my team members, we have spent the last few months identifying those areas that we really fit in well. And that's what we're targeting right now, which is, a main focus around power gen. You're hearing and seeing a lot about natural gas right now being utilized for LNG, but a lot of it is also being utilized for these data center projects. The only true way to power them is going to be with gas. So you might hear behind the meter technology. That's where we come into play to supply, that type of equipment, because it's something we've already been doing for a long time. And then as you get into the actual data center space, there's other opportunities around liquid cooling or water quality, things of that nature. So we're still in the infancy of it. I won't lie. So I can't speak too intelligently on it, but I do know that there's a place, and we're excited to see where it goes.
Well, and it sounds like you're able to supply almost the end to end for what those data centers would need, right? Because you've been in so many different spaces, it allows you to kind of position yourself to support the demand that they need for energy consumption.
For energy, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say anything outside of the white space, we definitely have a good foot in the door there. But when you start getting inside the servers, now that's not our world. Well, we'll leave that to people a lot smarter than us.
Fair enough. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the future. Obviously, data centers, right? But tell me a little bit about what excites you when you look to the next 2-3 years for ChemTech.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just hit on it. We're always looking to find new markets and areas that we can be successful. Kind of build a strategy around it and see where it goes. So, I think this is a very good market for us. I think it's something that we're going to be very successful in. So I'm excited to see, we're only in the first few months of this, but I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
Awesome. Well, Adam, this has been super fun hearing about you, your own leadership journey, some of those elements that have made you who you are today, right? Allowing you to show up as a great VP, right? Leader of a team, working and treating your customers like family. Before we wrap, I always ask this question. What's one piece of advice that you would offer to somebody else who's maybe in the infancy of their career, but eventually wants to become a vice president of business development like you?
Sure. I mean, I have to do this first because I think it's the most important, part of my daily life is, I first have to give all credit to God. Until I really made that the foundation of my life, everything kind of just fell into place after that. My career exploded, my personal life exploded. So, thank you, God, for all that you have done for me. But when I talk about, people and, when I do mentor, some young folks, just the biggest thing is it doesn't matter where your background comes from, whether you come from a small town or somewhere else. If you have the work ethic and you bestow that, or it's bestowed upon you and you work hard and always be your true self and be genuine and real, the rest really is just going to fall into place over time. So stay true to yourself, work hard, and it'll all happen for you.
Well, you're living proof of that. So, Adam, thanks for joining, man. This was fun.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, thank you for having me, man. It was a good time. I appreciate it.